Hello and welcome to a review of set 77076 Durr Restaurant. If you're new, please make sure to subscribe. This set was first released June 1st, 2025 and retails for £55 or $65 and contains 546 pieces along with 3 minifigures. It can contain 4 minifigures if you do include the skeleton. However, for the purpose of this, I'm not really classing that as a minifigures. I'm classing these 3 main ones as the minifigures. So this is based off the Lego Fortnite location Durr restaurant, which you can find in most of the popular hotspots. Mainly, I think it's Greasy Grove. I think just looking at the front of this set, it's not worth the price point, but we will get into more of that later on. You get the main build here, along with a couple of small extra builds. And on the back of the box, you can see the small playability features it offers, along with some of the detail inside and how you can detach it. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how that works and see how you actually have to build it overall. But let's get into the box. So to get into the box, it is just thumb tabs, which you would expect on a set like this, as it is a kid's set, and I wasn't anticipating tape seals in here. However, I was anticipating paper bags. However, that doesn't seem to be the case. So inside the box, you have 5 bags numbered 1 to 5. You have 2 base plates, as you can see here. Pretty nice little pieces there, and you do have some stickers. Mine in this case were bent as they were sandwiched in between 2 of these base plates, which is quite disappointing. However, they should smooth out. And then you do have your typical Lego instructions with the newer design with the QR code, along with the Durr minifigure going along the bottom. So let's get this all built up and I'll catch you in a second. So the set is all built up. Let's have a look through the minifigure. So starting off, you just have the very basic Lego skeleton. As you can see, not really anything going on there. The usual face print, and you do get a pickaxe there to go with it. Moving on, I believe this minifigure is called Grimy, and it's a pretty nice minifigure. You do have some good detailed prints on the side and the back, and then there is no arm printing, unfortunately. However, you do have the face print, and there's no back face printing there either. However, the cap does just cover that all up, and then you do get the sword and the torch accessory as well. So moving on to the next minifigure, this is the Beach Bomber, and it is a really detailed minifigure, as you can see, with the printing all the way from the feet, up the legs, on the torso, and all the way up to the face. There is no arm printing there, however you do get a little bit on the back as well. You do have the dual molded hair and hat combo, which is really nice to see, and you have the single facial expression, as you can see there as well. And on the top there is the llama printed just like in the game, and a little bit more printing on the top of the hat. You do also get the sword and shield. However, when you do have them positioned correctly, they do kind of block up some of that detail. Now moving on to the minifigure I think is the best in this set. This is the Beef Boss, I believe, or the burger skin, whichever you want to call it. And the amount of printing on here is incredible, along with, I believe it's like quad molded. I was trying to look, so you got the tan, the brown, the pink, and the green all individually molded, which is really quite nice to see as well. I'm just waiting for it to focus. You do get the single accessory, which is the long sword, and then you do have a bit of printing on the back there as well, which is really nice to see, to show like the backpack or the parachute as well. And there's not too much about it. However, I can see this minifigure going for quite a bit on the second-hand market. So moving on to the rest of the set, it's a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. It's just a bit disappointing for the price you pay, but I'll get into more of that slightly later on. You do have all these individual mini builds on the sides, which you can quite easily detach and have on display. So you got the, I believe it's the chili tree, and you've got the beach umbrella, and then you've got the ordering stand, the ordering book here, which do just all disattach here on these studs on the side. And then as we move onto the back, you can see inside. So it is designed like in the game, so you can loot it as well. So you've got like your chest or full of dynamite, shovels. You've got a spider up here as well, which is a really nice little bit of detail. And then down here you have your pop machine, along with the buttons to click it. I believe you got the drink here, which is quite a cool way of making it. So it is a 1x1 stud on the bottom, and then you got the like unicorn horn, and then that pops up and acts as a straw. So it's a really nice technique there. And then you got the burger and the counter, and it's all a relatively confined space, so you can have a little bit of playability in there as well. And you can make the roof detach quite easily, as it is just held on by these jumper blocks here, so that does allow a bit more access. Moving on up through the roof, they've managed to get some quite nice curves with these pieces. I absolutely love these pieces, and a nice bit of detail along here as well. However, the roof looks like the majority of the build. It is significantly taller than the base. However, this is a sticker, and the Durr was quite cool to build, and it does twizzle on here as well if you want to do that, and it does open as well, so you have that little bit of playability and positioning, so you can have it an angle with it closed, open, however you wish. So as mentioned when going through the box, it showed how you can dismantle the set and rebuild it to a degree, and in the instructions it does give you different ways of doing it, as it is all modular. As you can see there, they're all the individual bits you can move around, and then it does come with the individual instructions for each design you want. So it does just show you attaching them to the different bits, getting that slight different position, so you could have multiple in theory and have a bit of a town going on. And then in the back in the instructions, you can see the 2 other sets coming out in the June 1st wave. So overall, I do think this set is slightly overpriced for the £55 that you do pay. I believe you can get much more value for money Fortnite sets, for example, the llama, and I did actually manage to pick up the battle bus for £55. So when you're comparing those two for each other, it's definitely not worth the value. However, it does include quite a few cool minifigures, and I can see this set being on sale later in its run. And it does offer a lot of playability and different designs, which is what LEGO is all about, so they have nailed that quite well. However, overall, it's not worth the current price unless you desperately want it June 1st. Definitely wait for it to come out on sale. So that's going to be it for this video. If you're new, please make sure to subscribe. I'll see you next time.